Alright, here is my Liberties and Rights slideshow by me. Sorry about the horrible camera quality, but I could not get my computer fixed. This is Unit 3. So for the first case that I chose, that was in the iCivics game, it was just this lady come in, she's like, oh, I was being treated unfairly by the city because I had curly hair. And so an example of this, it violates the 14th Amendment that protects everyone pretty much no matter what you look like on the race. So it guarantees everyone equal protection no matter what. This was put into place after the Civil War in 1866. It was part of Reconstruction, and the Civil War, a lot of that was about slavery, and that was all just brought on by the abolition movement, and everyone was like, slavery bad, you know. An example of a case that was kind of related to this was Plessy versus Ferguson. It was in 1896, and people were, it was brought on by people were putting in separate but equal train cars, quote unquote. It was deemed constitutional under the Equal Protection Clause, that they're like, oh, you could separate people, it just has to be equal. And the result of this is it kind of allowed Jim Crow laws in the South, and that stayed that way until like the 1960s. And the ideas established here were pretty much discredited around the Brown and Board of Education case. And like my views on the 14th Amendment is that it is necessary and it's there for a reason, and that separate and equal is not equal, because we saw how segregation was like. The people of color didn't really have as nice things as the white people did. So it's not equal, and people have their rights regardless of what they look like. Evidence for this was just basically my morals, and that appearance really isn't that deep. It doesn't exactly matter what race you are. We're just all humans, and we should all be able to get along just fine. So that's my views on the 14th Amendment. The next one, Sticky Fingers McGee came into my firm, and he said he was caught shoplifting, and his punishment was to get his hands chopped off. So that was very extreme. So that violates the 8th Amendment, because cruel and unusual punishments, unusual and cruel, getting your hands chopped off is not exactly what I would say fair for shoplifting. The 8th Amendment, as I just said, is no cruel and unusual punishments, no excessive bail or fines. This is in the Bill of Rights because it's the 8th. It's also seen in the English Bill of Rights, so it's where we can see kind of like the first idea of this emerging, and it was brought just to bring proper justice rather than, because like this isn't justice, it's just excessive. And colonists put this in because they're kind of upset with the British and the people which should be falsely accused, or just excessive punishment in general. An example of this would be Estelle v. Gamble. This case was in 1976, and basically Gamble, he was working and he was injured, and he was taken to the doctor, and they kind of only gave him pain medication, but it didn't really help, and he was kind of just ignored. And so he's put in solitary confinement, and he was punished for an injury that he wasn't even properly treated for. And so they ruled that this was a violation of the 8th Amendment, that indifference to prisoners' suffering is cruel, and so this case is very tied to the 8th Amendment. My ideas on, my views on this case is that it is just completely necessary to prevent extreme punishments, and that, punishing someone in just such an extreme way isn't really justice. And in that fact, like, if you kill someone, if that's a crime, then why can the government do that? Or why could they chop off their hands? Why is that not legal? And my reasoning for this is just my morals again. You'll see that a lot in this slideshow. That cruelty is cruelty, and you should try to reform prisoners, especially like shoplifting, rather than try to break them down even further. So, next slide, 85 Sheep Exchange. Basically, Bo Peep came into my law firm. She was like, my dad wants to sell me into slavery in exchange for 85 sheep, and that is really bad. That violates the 13th Amendment, basically saying that no one can be enslaved, or there's no like indentured servitude, like you can't be forced labored, and it was established in 1864, so it's a little after, a little like before the Civil War ended, and it was ratified by over the 2/3 majority requirement. So you need 2/3 of the states to agree to ratify it, and it was more than that. And this whole slavery thing, this, you know, it all came on because of the abolition movement, and people thought slavery was cruel and they wanted it gone. That's also what caused, one of the reasons that caused the Civil War, is that people could not agree over something like this. An example of this includes Bailey v. Alabama. It was in 1911, and it overturned peonage laws in Alabama. So basically, like, Alonzo Bailey, he breached out of a contract, misspelled contract, I'm sorry, and he wasn't allowed to defend himself in court, and then was sentenced to hard labor. This was deemed unconstitutional because that's basically just indentured servitude, and that is not allowed in the Constitution by the 13th Amendment. So this tied a lot with the 13th Amendment. My views on the 13th Amendment is that just slavery is bad, forced slavery is bad, and this amendment was very necessary and needed to abolish slavery in the South because they weren't going to do it by themselves. And my evidence and reasoning for it is just the same as other ones. It's my morals that, you know, slavery is bad and people shouldn't own other people, and that, as I just said, it was needed because the South wasn't going to do it on their own, and they would have just continued to use slaves. So that's it. Here's my certificate, and then these are my sources about Bailey v. Alabama and Estelle v. Campbell. Thank you.